right, joining us today on Pirate Radio Live, former East Carolina head basketball coach, NASCAR aficionado, all-around good guy, Mack McCarthy joins us. Coach Mack, how you doing, man?
I'm good. Hope you are.
Yes, sir. Doing well. Coming off a Daytona 500 Sunday, one that you had to wait around for. I forgot to mention this on the show yesterday, and I got some qualifiers here. I wasn't completely duped, but I always wonder how, when they're showing an old race, people get fooled by it. So I took a great nap on Sunday, which I usually don't do, and woke up and turned to Fox and was watching the cars go around and doing other stuff. And then I think I walked out of the room, came back in, and they were in the booth talking about a lengthy rain delay. Clint Boyer and Harvick and the guys and Mike Joy. And I was like, wait a minute. Was I just watching a race for, 15 minutes that was last year's or whenever? And I
Yeah.
was. So, you know what? Now that I'm an old person that gets duped like that, I'd like to say they need to do a better job of letting folks know. We need a big flashing sign or something that this is not live.
Yeah, even though they had it up there, you're watching the 2024 Daytona 500. Yeah,
I
I'm
need it
with you. I
bigger.
need more. I need more information too. But normally I hate a rain delay, but I had three games that for work I had to actually be watching on Sunday, and it worked out where I got to watch all three of them and the race. It couldn't have gone better for me. And Gene cooked appetizers all day long, so it was a good Sunday.
Oh man, max appetizers. Yeah, that's just more good eating when the race gets extended like that. Uh, Mac, do you have any idea how the standings sit right now?
I do not. I'm in
Okay.
so many pools, but I know I didn't win.
Hey, my guy won, and I
I
have
told you.
and
I told you I was a good pick.
I have 0 points.
Yeah,
I had three guys not finish, so I
yeah.
had the winner and three DNFs, which puts me at zero. Um, Jared had one DNF, so he's sitting at -1 as we head into week two. And Coach Mack had the best average, 10.4. So the standings right now sit Mac McCarthy 2, Clip Brock 0, Jarrett Watkins -1.
I like it.
Yeah.
I like it. I've got a big lead already. I may points race from here on.
We'll see how it goes. Anything like stand out to you, Mac, or was it a typical Daytona 500? We saw the crashes, we saw the craziness, we saw it seemed like at times it was going to be Blaney's race and then somebody else's. So saw a lot of different things happen. Anything stand out to you at all?
No, sadly, doing the autopsy on this race, I don't come away with a good feeling. There is nothing more intense than Talladega and Daytona racing. We used to call it plate racing. Now it's whatever engine restriction they have on it. But I still call it plate racing. But uh, we have to we have to find a way to fix it, and I don't have any idea how to fix it. It is the most intense racing that we have. You're on the edge of your seat the entire time, but it's in the end, yeah, there is skill required, but there's an awful lot of luck involved too for the biggest premier race of the year. I wish there was a better way to get this done, and that doesn't take. And I may have answered my own question. What can we do about it? Nothing, because money is the answer, and people love to see it. They love to see the crashes. They love to see the intense racing. So maybe nothing ever gets done, but people have been complaining about this since the at least the 80s, that I know for sure that most of the best drivers do not love this kind of racing, but they do love the fact that it's the Daytona 500 and we start out every year with it. Nobody else starts the regular season with the Super Bowl, but somehow in NASCAR we do.
They'll be racing in Atlanta coming up this Sunday at 3 o'clock. Mac, you
Uh,
got a guy or two to watch?
No, and see this is part two of my rant here because they've totally ruined one of the best racetracks in the country. It used to be great. Tires would fall off. You had to manage your tires. Cars slowed down second, 2 second, 3 seconds a lap, and now it's just another super speedway race, except that it's on a mile and a half track instead of 2.5 mile track. Yeah, we've had great finishes there, and that's wonderful. But again, it's not a real test like some of the other tracks can be.
Mac, you're supposed to be selling me on this sport and exciting me, not, you know.
Most of it I can, but these two things I just, and again, I even said with the caveat that while we need to do something about it, there's no more intense racing than the two races at Daytona and the two races at Talladega.
Mack McCarthy joining us. We'll be talking NASCAR. We'll have hopefully Jared back next week to join us. He is off to Bowie's Creek for East Carolina and Campbell baseball, which
Baseball, yeah.
baseball season getting underway. Pirates 2-1 after winning the series over George Mason. So also more basketball victories for the Pirates since we last spoke.
Yeah.
Mack McCarthy is East Carolina, their second straight 3-game winning streak in conference play. And I don't know if I've ever said this in mid to late February. East Carolina has a winning record on the road in conference play. If they were a little better at home, they'd really be doing something. But still a shot here, Coach Mack, at getting top four in the league and getting that bye all the way to Friday for conference tournament play.
That would be pretty incredible because I lived long enough ago, which means November and December, where people were firing Coach Schwartz, and now he's the best coach we've ever had. And although I do take exception to your two straight 3-game winning streaks, that would be 6 games, but
Well,
three, three, and then three. I get you. I get you. But hey, they're a great story, and what a neat thing for the long suffering Pirate basketball fans to have this to cheer for. And hey, you finish in the top four with what went on at the beginning of the season with some of the losses they had and all the negativity. This would be a tremendous turnaround, and I like their chances. I really do. They're playing hard, and now the shots are going in.
Mack McCarthy joining us. Speaking of college hoops, over the weekend we saw number one versus number two. And how about what Auburn did to Alabama in Tuscaloosa? Very impressive win for the Tigers, the number one team in the country. And Florida, I think the new number two, Coach Mack, with Duke at
Yes.
number three. Duke beating Virginia last night in Charlottesville. But did that Auburn Alabama game tell you anything you didn't know before that game?
No, it told us both of them are really good. Both of them have a lot of ways to beat you, but that game is always intense. And first time, I was a little surprised by the fact that it's the first time ever a 1 and 2 have met from the SEC. Kentucky's been number
Yeah.
one sometimes for years at a time, and you would thought somebody else had jumped up there and been a number two, but that was a pretty amazing stat for me. And they were talking about the significance of the game, and of course, one versus two has its own thing. But I actually got to coach. My last game at Auburn was an SEC championship game where we played Alabama. That we talked a little bit about last week. That was a pretty significant game to win the SEC and to go to the NCAA, and that was just a couple years into where you took more than one team from a league too. So it had even more significance. But yeah, Auburn kind of solidified themselves, I think, and justified what the voters did last week by keeping it number one, even though they lost at home to Florida. So they look a little bit smarter than they usually do.
Yeah, I did a trivia question last week on number one versus number two regular season matchups, and I want to say the last one or either most recent before Saturday was Gonzaga and UCLA, and I remember there was let's see, mid 2000s Ohio State and Wisconsin. One versus two was on that list, but there was a lot in the postseason, but weren't too many regular season one versus two matchups. I think I remember a Carolina Duke one from the '90s as well, if I'm not mistaken. But And does Auburn and Florida play? Can we get another number one versus number two this year? I don't know if they play in the regular season.
I don't think they play down the stretch.
Uh,
I'll look at it during the next commercial break.
we had a oh yeah, we'll be back after this. We had a top 10 matchup in women's college basketball that Shirley Rhodes attended, and I was not paying attention to this over the weekend, Coach Mack,
Yeah.
but
Yeah.
a 29-point victory for UConn over South Carolina in Columbia.
That was like the old UConn, and I had kind of written them off among teams that could win the whole thing because they've come up with some injuries and they played some lackluster games. But goodness gracious, they certainly vaulted themselves back into that conversation with Notre Dame and UCLA and USC and South Carolina, and you absolutely have to include Connecticut with that kind of performance. And I know Shirley was tickled to death.
Yes, she certainly enjoyed that, courtesy of Coach Greg Hudson, as he's got her to a couple of UConn games already this season. Coach Mack, coming up tonight, let's see, we got SEC, Mississippi State, and Texas A&M. What do you think about Buzz Williams' team? Our buddy Steve Roccaforte, assistant coach there at College Station. They are number 7 in the country. How real are the Aggies, Coach Mack?
Yeah, they didn't play a great non-conference schedule, but they kind of served notice that they might be good, and they've just continued to win close games. They haven't gotten the same notoriety that Florida and Alabama and Kentucky and heck, even Arkansas and certainly Auburn and even Mississippi and Mississippi State have been talked about more than Tennessee. I don't mean to leave them out. All those folks have been talked about more than A&M, but they've quietly climbed all the way up to number 7 just by not having a bad loss in there.
Also tonight, Big Ten action: Purdue, Michigan State, and then I want to ask you about the Big East. Marquette is number 16 in the country. They host Seton Hall. Maybe it's because UConn has been down. I don't know what it is. I have not followed much Big East basketball this year. So we talk about the ACC being down, the SEC being way up, Big Ten up, obviously, and the Big 12 with the schools they added with Arizona and those schools, certainly a power league. But where's the Big East kind of fall into play here in 2025?
Well, it's not great. They don't have a bunch of folks, and their best team. I don't know how good their best team is. St. John's is the best team. Along, I think Marquette might actually be the most talented team, but Connecticut and Creighton has been really good. But of course, they're much better at home than on the road. But Coach McDermott always does a good job. And by the way, I was looking over here to the side to check on Auburn's schedule. They do not play Florida, but they finished the season with Alabama, so that could be another one to get
Yeah,
matchup.
could be.
If Alabama does their job, although Alabama has all ranked teams left, including their last 3 are all against top 5 teams. I think they
Jeez.
do play. I think they do play Florida, and obviously they play Auburn again, and then I think they play. Gosh, what's the other team they play? Tennessee. So they've got a really tough road to hoe. But if they get through that unscathed, that might be another 1-2 matchup. But
Awesome.
but yeah, the Big East. I think Shaka Smart's got the best team, but St. John's is playing so good for Patino. And goodness gracious, like him, hate him, whatever you want to do, the guy wins basketball games.
I think another thing on that too is I mentioned UConn kind of being down a little bit this year, but Villanova kind of a non-factor too, and I
Yeah.
don't know if that takes away from just my paying attention to it. Also, we've talked about this in the past. The Big East is on, I guess, what, Coach, the Fox package, so to speak. They're on Fox
Yeah.
Sports,
Yeah.
and I am, more likely to click on ESPN and see what's on ESPN Plus rather than I am to see what's on Fox Sports. So they lose a little bit from that too, I think.
Yeah, a little bit. Although the Fox also has the Big Ten and some of those games, and I will admit that I missed some Big Ten games because of that too.
Well, hell, there was 3. We were talking last week. There was like 3 pretty big games on Peacock last week. So games are on. You just got to find them. But if you do want to find a particular game, you should be able to do so.
Yeah, I'm all for watching those streaming games because that's the only place I'm on right this minute.
Yeah. All right, Coach. I know you're gearing up for the CAA tournament, and
Yeah.
going to be potentially a team from North Carolina that could be hoisting that trophy in UNCW. But what you got before then? Anything coming up this week, next week?
I've got Cal at Virginia women's basketball. Then I've got Cal at Virginia Tech. I'm doing a little travel with the Cal Bears, and actually they just are outside the rankings. They've been in the top 25 all year. I think they're 21-5. Also, they've got one great player named Kralili, an Australian girl who is among the top five in 3 pointers made for her career, points for her career, field goals made for her career. She was at San Francisco and transferred to Cal for the last 2 years. But yeah, I've got the Cal Bears, and then prepping for the CAA. Towson looks like the best team in the CAA, which you and I remember as the Colonial, but now they are the Coastal for whatever reason. But Campbell is playing really well for North Carolina. UNCW is playing really well. UNCW, of course, played the Pirates earlier in the year, and they're really, really good defensively after not being quite as good defensively as Coach Siddle's teams usually are on the defensive end. But they don't score it quite like some of the teams he's had. But there's no question they are a threat to win the tournament in DC.
Coach Mack, we'll wrap it up. I don't think you were angry ranting earlier. I don't think you gave me a winner for Atlanta. Can you just give me a name so if you hit it, we can replay it next week and make you sound smart?
Yes, Christopher Bell.
All right, I'll take that. I'll have
I
another
bet you will.
win and then four guys not finish and be in the
Exactly.
negative
Well,
somehow.
there's going to be some not finished in Atlanta too.
Mac, enjoyed it, man. Appreciate it, and we'll check in with you next week.
Thanks, Clip.